Ahoy! Yesterday the devs answered a variety of questions and we'll get to that a little bit later, but at the very end of that there was a segment of Balance of Power where they very briefly touch upon the Shirking Heals Ankh issue that is currently very much dominant in the game. And we did some more testing regarding that and things are actually even worse than it seemed, and then afterwards we get to the actual questions. So David just mentioned very briefly that Shirking Heals and Ankh have this problematic interaction at the moment. I'm sure once we get to the actual Balance of Power show, he will also discuss some of the bugs in detail, but I wanted to give you a better understanding of where we're at now after the nerf. So the values that I had originally calculated for Shirking Heals with no bugs or anything were this. So 5 times Shirking Heals at 18,555 health should be giving you 2,642 healing, which is a reasonable amount. That did not turn out to be the case at all. And with Ankh, that should have been 4,359. Neither is that the case at all. Now, in our old testing, pre-nerf, we found that the actual Shirking Heals healing value was 3,667, and the value with Ankh was 6,339. But in reality, the actual healing here is higher, and Ankh is not the only factor in that. I talked about this already, the scaling on Shirking Heals is bugged. The percentage seems to scale up with your gear score, so you get way too much healing on higher gear score. And what we didn't factor in last time was that when you enter an arena, all of your gear pieces actually get scaled up, so the heal is effectively higher in there than it would be outside unless you already have all of your Shirking Heals pieces with very high gear score. So we did some new testing, replaced one of the 600 gear score pieces from previously with a 675 gear piece in Biggie's set, and that now ended up with higher healing. So before that he was already healing for 3,965 because he had replaced one piece, and that was without Ankh. And now after this he was actually healing for 4,291. Again, this is meant to heal for 2,642, so we have more than 1.5 times the value. This was also with slightly lower health than what we used for the original calculation. This was with 17,721. And that's still not the end of what you can reach, because despite Ankh being nerfed, it is still multiplicative, which means the nerf is relatively minor. You take your normal healing value times 1.1 for the Divine on Ankh and then times 1.25, so the real overall healing value that you're getting is 137.5% of your normal healing, which is still a lot more. This results in the actual healing from 5 Shirking Heals pieces with this new gear score and with Ankh being 6,081 at 18,580 health. Very high value still, pretty much the same as we calculated before the Ankh quote-unquote nerf. But on the other hand, along with this nerf, health pots are now more effective again as well. They're not getting the reduction anymore, so you're healing for 3,282 with a health pot, and then you can also heal for 2,813 with a healthy toast on top of that. If you want to double down on it, you can also throw in 50 focus and you get roughly 500 extra healing. So once again, Ankh is part of the entire calculation and in my opinion still a problem because it's still multiplicative, but by far not the only problem because Shirking Heals in itself is so broken through the percentage scaling that it kind of overshadows all the other stuff. Even if you were running it without Ankh, it would still be an insanely high healing value and you'd still get the full healing out of pots in that case, even though again the pot reduction is very low now and you can also run Healthy Toast. So yeah, I think the scales are still completely off here. And I really hope that this is something that they will address in the Balance of Power. They will acknowledge that it's not just an Ankh thing, and hopefully tell us that we get a fix for this very soon, because it is very quickly becoming the thing in small-scale PvP, especially arenas. Due to the numbers being so absolutely broken, anyone who is running a lot of Shirking with Ankh is just a massive advantage compared to everyone else they're fighting. You'd have to have very coordinated CC or burst to take them down before they can re-proc it, but the odds are so much lower and so much higher effort compared to what the person with Shirking Heals needs to do. If numbers and testing like this are interesting to you, then consider subscribing and clicking the bell. If you'd like to support me further, you can do so on Patreon. Thanks to my patrons who already do exactly that. There was also some other interesting new information. The devs were asked if they are going to do any Magnify changes, and they said they have no immediate plans to change Magnify, and they think that it is beneficial for casual players. They are trying to come up with a solution to provide the benefits while also still helping split stat players though. There will be more artifacts with each season tied to the content, so that's gonna stay interesting. They will slow down, however, on Heartrune releases and not do that every season anymore. The team is getting a lot of questions about transfers, and they are reviewing the numbers closely every day, but they can't just open up servers. Not reaching the max cap on a server doesn't mean that the world is not full. It depends a lot on how the population fluctuates, how many people can suddenly come back or spike on certain days and so on. So there's a little bit more going into that, but I understand as well that it can be very frustrating if a world is locked and not full. We were waiting for one of our friends to come back, and it was exactly that situation. It's not fun. Somebody asked if there were any plans for changes to debuff resilience, since bosses in higher level mutations already have a higher empower, so they already have an effect that makes them stronger, and that kind of doesn't make sense in context of the debuffs being reduced, whereas think Sandworm, for example, didn't have this extra empower, so the whole debuff resilient made more sense. They've said that this is a fair question, but they have no immediate changes planned. They say that M2s in general have a very high win rate, and people do them very easily. However, M3 is intentionally made to be harder. They like the new debuff resilience mechanic for difficulty there, and it requires people to bring in different weapons is what they say, but the reality is that probably not really. You're just gonna not try and hit all the caps most of the time on bosses, in my opinion. I think you're just going for more DPS to some degree at least, exception being the rents that you're kind of naturally using anyways. But I personally would agree with the person asking the question regarding weakens, because weakens really don't do that much anymore in these situations. M3 is going to be harder to do with pucks, what they're saying, and I completely agree with that. But they're also saying that rewards from M2 can pretty much hit the same things, just at a different percentage. So it's not really the biggest deal to them. In more casual and relaxed runs or pugs, I have been running a lot of M2s as well. These days I run M3s when I know that the people I'm running with are prepared for that and mentally prepared for that too. So I can see their angle here, I can understand that. I do think that the weaken resistance in particular is just a bit overboard. I think the 50% one would be fine, but with the empower also counteracting it even further, it does seem a bit disproportionate. They were asked if there will be any worm rate difficulty changes. One person asked if they would be downscaled, another one asked if it would be upscaled, maybe along with the Season 4 mutated trials. They're currently not planning any changes in either direction, and they think it should be easier when people get 700 gear score and artifacts. They are, however, considering to make the Heartrune available through other means in a season or two. In the far future, many seasons from now, they may up-level the Sandworm raid. They were asked for solutions for shorter queues, and one solution that they already implemented is the latent character. If you haven't played for 180 days, you get transferred off the server. And also, there are worlds that get unhidden when another world is locked, so I guess that's talking about new servers that are technically available already. And they also have the option to transfer from the main menu without logging into the game first, which requires you to queue once and then get out of the queue, and then you will have that option available. All just minor things in my opinion, not really a queue solution, but at the end of the day there's also only so much you can do when you are playing on a very populated server. Somebody asked about plans for optimization passes, and they said they have nothing to share yet, but they have a pretty big initiative planned that they can share in a few months, so that is going to be interesting. Once cross-world expeditions are released, they're planning to increase the simultaneously active mutations to 3, so 3 different ones to choose from, 3 different expeditions. Currently they have no plans to adjust the types of the mutations. Somebody wanted to know what happens when an artifact drops in a bag and you can't pick it up because you, for example, can't reach it because there's this 1 drop per artifact limit. So that doesn't count against the loot limit and it can still drop. However, there's currently a bug that if the artifact dropped and your game crashed, it counts as that 1 drop. So they're working on a fix for that specifically. That should hopefully not affect too many players, though it may affect some people that were farming Rapier after the boss was fixed. There will be some compensation for the people who bought the Season Pass levels this season. They will get a compensation box specifically for Season 4, so you can immediately get the first 20 levels there. There are no plans for more gear slots at the moment, since Ward and Bane were removed. Certain named items that couldn't be upgradable should be upgradable soon in the next patch, which is planned around Halloween. Hopefully also the patch that brings the Shirking Heals fixes. The next dev update will be shortly after the next patch in early November. Also, 10 trolling is fixed, by the way. Once we get any new info, I will of course let you know. I'm hoping the balance of power will be soon. If you'd like to see that, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you get notified. Thanks to my patrons for supporting this video, and thank you for watching. Duke Sloth, out.